introduced me. It's Matt. It's either, they get it close when they say Gauthier, that's fun, or Gauthier, but it's just simply Gauthier. Like phonetically, it would be G-O-C-H-A-Y.
Well, it's the spelling.
It is, and it looks like Gauthier or Gunther. I get Gunther a lot.
Yeah, I can see it.
I had one guy in Alabama say to me, I was doing a show, he says, Matt, how do you say your last name? I'm just about to go on. I said, Gauthier. He goes, Gauthier, okay. He comes to me about 2 minutes later. Sorry, Matt, I wasn't thinking. Say it again, Gauthier. And then literally, before I went on, he goes, I'm so sorry, one more time. How do you say it? Gauthier. So he finally gets up and he goes, ladies and gentlemen, all the way from Ontario, Canada, we got Matt Gauthier. I'm like, dude, 3 times.
I know.
Three times.
I mean, in his defense, a little bit, I've done the same thing.
Oh, I can hear you.
But I've got a buddy whose last name is Gauthier, and it's spelled the same way.
Yep.
So for me, it was a little bit easier because I was able to, there was something for me to remember.
Oh, I get it. Gauthier, or Gauthier, the way it looks is actually an English way to say it as well. But my dad's French, so at the time in where I was from, Welland, Ontario, he we didn't have a lot of French people around. So they thought, should we teach them French? And they went, you know what, let's just Gauthier, make it an English sounding way to say it. And we went from there. So yeah.
Oh, it's interesting.
I've suffered ever since.
Isn't it kind of funny how a lot of people, that must be like a generational thing where the name usually was trying, with a bit of a Canadian, I guess, accent or slang to it. A lot of immigrants would change it to try and be a little bit more Canadian. I know, like with my grandparents, I think they did the exact same thing. They were from Holland or Netherlands, and so they took on more Canadian names just to make it easier because nobody could pronounce it, I guess.
That's correct. Yeah, like my parents, they came from the Netherlands as well, and they pronounced my last name Kraayenbrink, so they changed it to Kraayenbrink.
Easier to say.
Just to make it a little easier.
Yeah, makes sense.
And my mom's name is Irene, but her name in Holland was Rina. So she changed it to Irene so people could pronounce it.
It's more of a common Canadian name, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, a little backstory here. I did a little research. I wanted to try and give the listeners an idea of who you are, and then you can let me know if I nailed it or if I Google dropped it.
Okay.
So you guys are both from Sarnia, Ontario?
Yes, I'm from Sarnia about 30 years ago, moved there. And you were never from Sarnia, were you?
No, I'm from a little town
just outside.
South of Sarnia. Yeah, about 30 minutes from there, called Port Lambton.
Port Lambton? Mm-hmm. I know where that is.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Weirdly enough, I don't know why I do. Ontario is a huge province, so it's hard to try and get all the little regions, but I know the area that you're talking about.
There are people from Sarnia who don't know where Port Lambton is.
So you're doing good.
That's pretty good.
Oh, there you go. Win.
I had no idea.
And you are a singer,
Yes.
a comedian, musician, a songwriter, and impressionist.
Mm-hmm.
Early experience, started recording parodies at the age of 10 using guitar, keyboard, bass, and drums.
Yep.
Foundational in developing your voice for impressions.
Yeah.
Some career milestones includes coordinating a variety of concerts in 2002, which sparked corporate and festival gigs. Won a Rising Star at the World Tribute Artist Championships in 2004. 2 top finalists in Canada Great Impression Contest 2005. Vocal range is 5-octave range, allowing versatile genre impressions. Covers some Ozzy Osbourne, which is pretty cool. Ozzy Osbourne is definitely, I think, a lot of people's favorite.
Everyone knows him.
Absolutely. And I guess you have comedy-focused, use parodies with some of the funny, awkward lyrics, and wigs and costumes and props and whatnot are part of your presentation. And Lorraine is sound cues. Is that correct? You're part of the soundboard and the team trying to bring the whole show together, and you guys travel and work together?
Yeah, pretty much that. Yeah, I do. I help Matt with his sound, and
she's a vital part because during the show we have certain cues that I have that only she knows, and as a result, it gets the show nice and smooth, going from one song. So exactly when to start a song, when to shut it off.
Yeah,
little things like that. So she's pretty vital. Like when I've done a few shows where it wasn't Lorraine, where I didn't have my sound person, and I would be trying to give them a cue and they'd be looking down.
Yeah. Oh, on Facebook.
So he misses me sometimes.
I always.
I can imagine, especially if you get a routine dialed in and every area is a little different from the setup and the venue. I mean, it could be, well, what kind of venues typically do you use? Are they like backyard? Do you have like auditorium? Is it
all of the above?
Yeah,
ranges?
it depends on the show. For the Impressions show, yeah, it's usually corporate, you know, because I have a very clean show. I've been told that people have been hired before me for different venues, and that's how I got into corporate. Is a lot of the corporate entertainers were very vulgar, and they'd even pay more money to hire the watered down version.
Oh, really?
That's not as vulgar, and it was still too vulgar. So for 27 years, they would have these people coming in, literally causing people to leave because they were like, "This is too much for me. Too vulgar. Too much swearing. Too many innuendos." And then somebody saw me in a donut shop, you know, doing this Impressions thing, and they went, "Man, there's nothing bad here. He's not offending anybody." You know, just you know, and that's how I got into corporate, because I was safe. I was family friendly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
so-
that's definitely more of a common request, isn't it?
Nowadays, yeah.
But I bet you that has got to be that's another level, isn't it? Like there's even when you get into overall entertainment, usually some of the shock value and language is part of the act to try and emphasize, like Jerry Seinfeld, for example, a comedian, is one of the very few who don't use, you know, he's the same thing. He's a very clean show, isn't
Right.
it? Do you find that's hard to come up with material? Like, that's got to be a bit of a higher skill set?
Well, I find in comedy, what is truly funny makes you feel good. What isn't funny, like shock value, you might laugh, but you kind of feel dirty afterwards. You kind of walk away thinking, yeah, it made me laugh, but did it really? I mean, it kind of made you uncomfortable. So people laugh at that. I find being able to come up with comedy that isn't vulgar, all you do is look at life and the crazy things that happen. One of the impressions I do would be Roger Waters from Pink Floyd, and he's sitting on a toilet. And so I have this kind of, it's a toilet seat, and I'm sitting there, and it's like he's in the bathroom taking way too long. Why? So he comes out as like, "Hey, you out there in the hall, no more paper on the roll. Can you help me?" Right? So people love it because they've been there. Yeah. And I think anybody who's ever been alive can say that's happened to me at least once in my life where I've been stuck. There's no toilet paper. So little things like that, you know, that's what makes people laugh, because it's real.
And it's relatable.
It's relatable, and that's one of the tricks of comedy, is if they can relate to it, they'll laugh at it.
For sure. I get that, because everybody can develop that mental image, that personal experience they had, where, I mean, I can just think of that actually right now. And usually if it's in a public place, it's even got more humor, because it's got that embarrassment to it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So how did you get into something like this? Is a very unique little... Mm-hmm. Earlier you said, well, how did you get into podcasting? I'm like, oh man, how do you answer that? But I mean, I'll throw that question back at you. How did you get into this kind of stuff?
For me, it's simple. I couldn't sing. I didn't know how to sing. People would always tell me not to sing. The problem is I loved to sing, but I didn't have the voice to do it. In my head, I could hear it all, but I couldn't get out of my mouth. So I guess my mentality was, well, you don't like my voice. What if I sing a song like Axl Rose, for example? And you like Axl Rose's voice, so if I can do something like a "Wow, sweet child of mine," you might like that, you know, because he did it and he's popular. And then so I'd try and manipulate my voice to sound like different people, and as a result, I guess that way, you don't have to hear me because it's somebody else now, you know. And I guess inadvertently I had taught myself how to sing like other people. So it literally, because of that, took me a while to find my own voice years later.
You're self-taught?
Yeah.
You figured that out, how to manipulate your voice all on your own?
Very thankful for that. Yeah, I think I believe it's a divine gift, because my brother Mark is a metalhead. You know, he grew up listening to Ozzy, you know, and Black Sabbath, and so I kind of grew up Kiss and all that. So I learned how to sing like these guys, but then I also began to appreciate, you know, country and opera and all this different kind of stuff. So as time went on, I learned how to sing these different techniques, and it all worked together, because now when I do a show, I get to do all these different genres, Whereas a typical concert, you can't do that.
Yeah.
You know, you got to stick to one genre. But this, it's expected that I'm going to try and hit everything.
Holy man, and you stuck with it.
Yeah.
Well, like in the beginning of part of the introduction there, we touched on you started at the age of 10.
Yeah. I loved Weird Al Yankovic and his parodies. It
Oh,
hilarious, right?
Yeah.
So I thought I could do that too. You know, and they weren't very good. Nothing close to what, Weird Al Yankovic's a genius. So nothing close to his, but it was still fun to be able to express myself musically and have fun with the parodies.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was something that, like, when did it transition from, I think, an interest with something like that to where you're like, I'm going to start this in front of a crowd? And did it start with like maybe practicing in front of friends? And
it actually happened in a church. I was working in a church and I was the ministry coordinator, and I had to have people come in to do different singing. We do 4 concerts a year. So I'd always ask the same people to come and sing. And one year I thought, it's always the same people bringing in. What if I do something different? So I had 21 songs from the radio, and I thought, okay, obviously it's a church. I wouldn't do anything vulgar anyway, but especially since it's a church, let's just take some lyrics, some songs. One of the songs I still do today was Broken Wings. Take these broken wings and learn to fly again. I went, what if I went, take these chicken wings and learn to fry again, learn to pluck them clean, that type of thing. And people they loved it, and it went over great. So I thought, that's awesome. And so I did 21 songs like that, and the audience just erupted. But when I did it, I thought to myself, okay, if I'm going to do something in front of people, I need to be confident. I can't just, if I'm going to fail, I want to fail knowing I gave it all.
Full commitment.
And I remember the audience blacked out. I just was so focused on every impression I was doing, I couldn't even see them. I could hear them laughing, and that was encouraging.
Wow.
But I couldn't even see them. It was just, all I could see was that, okay, let's get this song right. And when I was done, somebody said, there's a church having a function. It'd be great if you could do that there. So I did it there. Well, there was someone in that church who had a cable TV station. He was just starting out with a cable TV program on a station. He goes, I'm looking for a new entertainment just to be on the show. Could you do a little bit? So I did that. Someone was watching that. Another pastor from a church was saying, I like that. Could you come to my church? And then they started paying me. I'm like, you can make money doing this. And then someone was someone had a birthday party and said, could you do this at the birthday party? And I said, sure. And how much you charge? Well, so I gave them a small number, and they went with it, did that. And then word got around. And when I got into corporate was because, I'll give you the short version. I went to apply for a job in a restaurant, and they said, oh, hey, Matt, have a seat. I think was it Louis? Louis will be right with you or something. And I said, okay. And I'm thinking, that's interesting. I just came in for an application. They're already giving me an interview. So I talked to the guy, and he says, okay, well, it looks good, Matt. No problem. I guess we can have you start midnight tonight. And I'm like, midnight? What do you mean midnight? And he says, yeah, and then he looks at the resume, and he goes, oh, wait a second. You're Matt Gauthier. Who's this guy? Well, apparently the Matt that was supposed to come in for that day didn't show up, so they thought I was him.
Oh.
Right? So this guy's saying...
Man, what are the odds, eh? Of that time, same person for the interview.
It's like I'm saying, divine intervention.
Yeah, I'd say.
So as it turns out, he says, okay, well, so I don't want this job then. And he goes, okay, but I notice you are an entertainer, and I have 2 coffee shops. And that was one of the coffee shops where the lady from Imperial Oil saw me, and she was the one that books the entertainment. And it was hilarious because...
The one you mentioned earlier with
that's
the
how I got
shop.
into corporate.
Oh.
Yeah, and the funny thing about that is that we were naive at the time. I didn't know how much to charge for that for corporate. So we're like, well, we'll give you 5 days for $2,400. We're thinking big bucks here. And it turns out we found out that the entertainers they had before were getting like $10,000 and put up for a week.
Oh, wow. Oh, man.
We were naive.
Well, yeah, hey, there's learning. There's definitely learning.
But it got us in. We were thankful for that. So it's amazing how things happen.
Well, it does. A spin-off. But there's a lot of corporate then I didn't know there was like when it comes to corporate, is there a strong demand for that?
It's huge because, your corporate events, at the end of the year, the holiday parties, they want entertainment, whether it be a dance or whether it be, an entertainer, comedian.
I need to get on with these companies.
Yeah. There's lots of work out there.
Yeah, I guess as not where I am. I guess I am the entertainment, eh?
There you go.
Right on. Well, that's probably given you, I think, an outlook and travel experience that not many people get.
Yeah.
Like, Lorraine, how did you guys meet and start traveling together? How does that work?
Well, in, what was it, 2019? Is that when we met?
2018.
2018. The end of 2018.
Well, we actually met 7 years before that. We both come from different marriages in the past. And so I thought for the past 7 years, I knew her in church that she was single. I had no idea. And then 7 years later, after my marriage, we had split up, and I was looking for a place to live. And because I was leaving my house,
Yeah, and just after one service, I said to Matt, we had actually sang together, and he had no idea my marital status, because, I don't know, you just didn't.
I thought your husband just was working. And,
yeah. So we had sang together, and I went to him, and I said, hey, I know what it's like. I've been divorced, if you ever want to chat.
Oh, yeah.
And,
you're divorced? I thought she was a great woman, had a good family, probably had a great husband.
A useful piece of information there, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I had personally been separated and alone for about 10 years.
Yeah.
I'd raised my children alone, and so I innocently said, if you ever want to chat. So we chatted, and it kind of went from there. Yeah.
That's awesome. And then it became something where you guys were able to share on the road experience.
Because I had been entertaining for a long time before that. So she stepped into this, and like she had no idea what it was going to be like.
Right.
That she was even going to become my official sound person.
But my career as a photographer led so many, like...
Oh, yeah. That's definitely a complimentary.
Yeah, definitely. So
you guys work together pretty good then.
We're a package deal, actually. If you have a wedding, I could be the entertainment.
There you go.
Yeah.
I also do piano shows too, where I take kind of like a dueling pianos, but one person, and so I have background tracks, and people can, I have like 400 songs they can choose from, so people will come up, give me their slip of paper type thing, the song they want, and at a wedding it's great because they hire her as a wedding photographer. And then they got me as the entertainer and as the DJ type thing, So we give them a package deal. Works out well.
Oh, it is awesome.
Yeah.
Right on. So the whole, I guess, approach with it is based on the music then, or like parodies and whatnot. Explain exactly what is the parody? It's I guess a mainstream song that you ad-lib different lyrics to.
Yeah.
Like you mentioned Weird Al Yankovic, and so most people, that's I guess a good example of a parody.
Yeah, there's different aspects when you're doing parodies, especially as a singing impressionist, because with parodies they got to be funny, like one of the key things, and there's different reasons why it has to be funny, the lyrics. What can save you if it's not as funny as you would like it to be is if you do a very good impression of that person. Right, so Weird Al Yankovic doesn't really focus so much on the impression as he does the lyrics, and the lyrics are genius. Other singing impressionists, they'll think, okay, I do a very good voice for this person, so even if the words aren't as funny as they could be, I sound exactly like that person. People will like it for that reason. So you have a whole bunch of different reasons.
And if I can add to that, the bit that you talk about, like the lead-in, he has a lead-in, a setup,
and then you sing,
and then he's
and the reason why I asked that question a little bit is because there's a few things that go into that I notice as far as a parody is there's a bit of a humor element. And how do you make the distinction between a parody and maybe someone trying to be a cover band? Because the cover band would be the exact opposite. They would want to mimic, I think, the replication of that song, wouldn't they? Whereas that's definitely not what your goal is. It's to try and bring humor out in a different way using the music.
And the good thing is sometimes you can actually use the actual words of the song, just kind of give them a different aspect. Like there's a song from Josh Turner that we use, and the way I set that up is basically, what if he saw a traveling salesman a door-to-door salesman coming up his door? What would he do? So I'm able to have the music start, and I go, maybe lock the door and turn them lights down low, right? So now it's a different perspective. Take the receiver off the telephone, right? It's a whole different thing instead of more of a romantic, baby, lock the door, turn the lights down low. Now it's turn them low because we got a salesman coming. So when you use the same lyrics, a lot of people laugh because it's like,
There's innuendo kind of mixed in there with it.
And you're using a different aspect of the song. So same words, but this time it's different. You know, it means something different. So that kind of gets people's funny bone tickled, so to speak.
Yeah.
You know. So yeah, the words, sometimes it can take a long time to write words.
Well, I can imagine, for sure, trial and error with something like that, from an idea to how do you execute that.
Yeah.
And with your act, I guess, too.
I've had to edit a lot of things that I've done live where I would do an impression, a new one, and I look at the audience and I would think, I think maybe, and then I'd realize, oh, they didn't get it. I said the wrong thing, or I have to change a line.
Yeah.
You know, and then sometimes you get it and it's a hit every time. Other times it's like, nope. And you throw that one out, maybe put it on the back burner.
You must give quite a bit of feedback from your perspective, eh, Lorraine? Like,
yes.
I bet you have a completely different point of view or perspective than Matt does.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right. We talk about the shows afterwards and what we think went over. And and I'll say, that action, because he does like his actions with it when he's on stage. And I'm like, that worked really well when you implied that you're reaching into your pocket to get something or whatever.
Right, yeah.
It really accentuated the lyrics, and people really got it this time. And other times, well, I don't think they got it because your actions didn't go along with. So yeah,
it's all part of performing. It's like when you see people, like you get a lot of people who either think they're performers or think they're singers, and you see a lot of that on YouTube or TikTok type thing, you know. And God bless them, you know, they're doing their best and all that, but they don't realize that the art of performing is a lot more than just being able to sing or being able to dance. Or
a lot more elements.
There's so much.
For sure.
Your mind is constantly going. It's like, if you watch my performances back to back, you could probably do 10 of the same impressions and watch my hands and body do the exact same moments for each one, because I'm so used to trying to get that point across to the audience, because they don't hear the lyrics. It doesn't make any sense.
Well, they do say, and I think this is why video is so good with a podcast, is that 53% of people's language is visual. Mm-hmm. And then I think it's 20, I don't know the exact numbers, but it's like 20-something% is verbiage, so tone of voice and like what you're using when it comes to your parodies. And then a very small percentage, like 10% roughly, is through the actual words and the messaging. And that's why I think, texting usually is so bad. But you're right. I mean, the body language, that's over 50% of your communication is through body language.
That's why it's so important, because you said it's such a small part, people's attention span as far as the vocals. Why in my show, it's so important to take that 10% and make it 90, because if they can't hear what I'm saying. I have one show years ago where they had someone, we usually bring our own sound system, but it was too big of a crowd, so we had a bigger system. They supplied the system. They didn't have the speakers in the right spot, so most people couldn't understand what I was saying. Yeah. So they thought I'm going up there singing a song. They just seen you. They're hearing me sing a song going, oh, he's got the lyrics wrong. That's not how it goes. And other people were like, this guy's a waste of time, man. It doesn't make any sense. He's not even getting the lyrics right. No kidding. But those who were hearing it were laughing.
Oh, I didn't even actually think about that. I guess, the 10% means
for us, it's got to be 90. You know, we have to boost that up.
Man, do you kind of cancel a show if you guys are scrapping? Because Lorraine, you can really, I mean, a lot riding there, eh? Turn the volume down a little bit.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? There's that old Far Side comic where it's like Ernie's last day on soundboard, and there's like bass, treble, suck, and he's got suck crank, and everyone's getting pelted with tomatoes. You know, so yeah, every day that we go on a day that we work together, I treat her real nice.
Yeah, no kidding.
But amazingly enough, we don't fight too much.
No.
We fight on occasion, but during a show too, we really bring across our professionalism. We can talk about it later.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh yeah.
And then we'll talk about it. And usually by then it's not even that bad.
Our fights are usually just discussions. You know, I think from being married twice, like this is our second marriage, you know, you learn from the first one, it's kind of like, it's not worth it.
There's takeaway points for sure.
Let's just talk things out, and we do, and it works out well.
Well, that's good, because the contact time, I mean, there's a lot of cool elements with the travel and everything else, but there's also, I think, stressors built into that most people don't experience. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Traveling is exhausting. I mean, people come back from vacation and need to relax, and this is a career.
That's right.
For you guys.
Yeah.
Are you on the road much? Like, do you cycle it, or?
Quite a bit during the summer, but not more for the piano shows that we do. because we do a lot of backyard parties and like restaurants type thing.
Oh yeah.
So, and for some reason, most of our shows are 2-3 hours away.
One way.
One way.
Yeah.
So, and people are usually
we're
like,
driving.
"So, where are you going to stay tonight? Are you guys aren't going home tonight, are you?" We're like, "Oh yeah, we're going home." Really? Yeah, we're used to it. It's like going to the store for us. Like 3-hour drive to us is kind of like just going to the market to get some apples.
I can relate.
Yeah,
I can relate. We travel a lot. I mean, have you been to Fort St. John before?
Well, a few times at the Lido. Brian keeps bringing me back.
Well, the space, is huge.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there is a lot of layover with the travel time, because if you go down to, let's say, Vancouver, southern BC, most people, they'll commute to and from work. It takes about an hour and a half, depending on rush hour traffic. And whereas, that's probably about the same amount of commuting time here. But we travel like 300-400 kilometers in a day.
Yeah.
It takes us about, hour and a half, so 3 hours a day travel time. Whereas Vancouver, you're commuting, an hour and a half and you're covering 10 blocks.
Right.
So, but people have that perception that it's like, oh my goodness, you're driving an hour and a half up there. It's so far and big open space, but it's about the same. But yeah, to get absolutely anywhere up here you're looking at an hour and a half. I mean, a day trip for us is to Grand Prairie. There's 2.5 hours one way.
Oh gosh,
Right.
we were here last December at the Lido doing 9 shows. And so someone had this idea. They said, "Why don't you go for a nice drive? There's a place, a beautiful view type thing." And we're like, "Okay, no problem." So we hopped in the car. They gave us a car to drive.
And don't forget the temperatures.
Oh, freezing cold.
Yeah.
It was
freezing.
so
it's ridiculous.
cold.
I've never
Our
experienced-
seasons are distinct here.
Yeah.
experienced that
So
cold in
we
my
hop
life.
in the car. We didn't look at the gas tank.
No, thankfully it was full.
Oh.
Because the nearest gas station out here was, I think, in what?
Oh,
3
when
hours.
we looked at the
I don't
map.
think there was any gas station anywhere.
No.
Yeah.
We were so thankful
We were
that
thankful that was full, because we'd have been stuck. After an hour and a half, we're like, or however long it was, we're like, there's no gas stations, So thankfully we were full, because we'd have been stuck. So you're right. This
Yeah.
is a big, big land and very few gas stations in some places.
Well, and you touched on something important with the temperature.
Oh, man.
People are not familiar with how to manage that. That's a real skill.
Yeah.
Well, you're so vulnerable.
You are. I mean, layering up and just kind of being aware of, vehicle dynamics. Like one of the things that we do is make sure that the fuel tank doesn't go below half.
It's a good idea.
But it's like, I mean, obviously because of what you were just touching on, you don't want to run out of fuel.
No.
But more importantly, there's a lot about thermal cycling. So if your fuel tank gets on empty and you've been running for a while, it's real warm. Like it warms right up. You build condensation, and then you get a lot of water buildup, and you can accumulate a fair bit of water just if you have a big area, empty space, a void. Whereas if you don't let your fuel get below half a tank, there is far more space in that tank for condensation buildup.
Right.
So you don't get near as much water in the system.
That's
That
a
makes
good
sense.
thing to know.
Which gas vehicles isn't such a big deal, really. The diesel ones are quite a bit more, because you have more of a return on your fuel cycle, and water in the system is bad.
Ugh.
Hits the injectors, and that's how you blow your injectors out through,
Right.
because it turns into steam, right, instead of a combustion. So, little things like that, people don't realize unless you're
You don't
in
wanna
the
be stranded.
environment and you.
Right.
Not out here. You don't want to be stranded. Even when we'd get gas out here, it'd be like minus 31. And you would be holding onto that. I mean, I'm sure everybody knows this, but you're holding onto that thing, just dreaming of getting back into that car.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen in Ontario.
The cold hurts, doesn't it? It
It
goes
really
right into your
does.
bone and
Oh,
works its way up
man.
your arm.
Yeah, but we get back, we're all arrogant, of course, thinking, what, you're cold?
Yeah,
It's just
tough
like-
guy.
It was like
That's
summer
nothing.
when we got back
We got
to
back,
southern
yes,
Ontario.
yeah.
It was.
Yeah.
Ontario, though, is so humid. That's a way different. Like it is a
very
different cold.
humid.
Yeah. It's a different heat, too. That's for sure.
Yeah,
Like,
it's
it gets
sticky.
really humid, yeah.
Yeah. So going back to, I had a question and I got to get it out there.
Hit it.
Because the octaves, 5 octave levels.
Yeah.
Okay. How is that important, and what's a normal octave range that, like, let's say an average, like what do you think my
Average-
octave range would be?
You'd probably maybe hit 3 if you're not a singer. Most people, I would say, sing within 2 octaves. So when I say an octave, you could be talking like 5 octaves. That's everything between 5 octaves. So if I'm
holy smokes,
that right there was 4. So
oh really?
Yeah. So and that's 4 octave. Now a lot of people will say, "Oh, I got a 12 octave range." Like, no, not a piano doesn't even have a 12 octave range. They don't understand what an octave really is, So depending how low, like there's days I can go lower, days I can go higher, but generally it's in those 5 octaves. The advantage is I can sing a lot of women's songs, right? Which kind of surprises people. How do you sing that high? And I used to teach my students, female students I would have, and I would say, you could sing this in like a Mariah Carey or something song.
Oh.
And I would sing it. And I would say, if I can do it being a male who typically has an octave lower than you, then you should be able to do it, right? And kind of encourage them to say, it's just a matter of technique, right? But yeah, it helps me to do the high. It kind of keeps me from being limited to what I want to do. So pretty much any song out there, if I can do the voice, then it's not a question of can I hit the note necessarily. It's more, can I sound like them, right? So it's definitely handy when it comes to being a singing impressionist because you got more to work with.
Well, how many octaves are there?
In a human voice, I think a human voice, there was one time I hit like 6. So I was like really low. And I would go like type thing. But generally, I would say the normal human voice can probably hit in that between 6 octaves. I couldn't see any more, unless you get into the whole whistle register, like Mariah Carey and her whistle singing type thing she does. Then if a guy does that, he could probably get up there. But typically I would say 6 would be the max. 7.
So a vocal cord's a muscle.
Yeah.
Have you seen what they look like?
Yeah.
I'm in my 40s. I just seen what it looks like. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And but it makes sense that it's a muscle.
Well, they're like piano strings. See, like a lot of people who have a naturally low voice, like if you look on a piano, they've got these like, I think, long vocal cords. So it's like they get that bass, right? People who have like a high voice, they have short vocal cords. And it's kind of like a piano. Like if you look at a piano, the high notes are really thin.
Yeah.
And then you look at the thick notes, long, right? It kind of the same aspect. Right. So if you're a singer and you only have a certain type of vocal cord, then you shouldn't beat yourself up if you can't hit low notes if you got short vocal cords, because your voice isn't made for that. We're all made for different things, right? I was considered a soprano baritone, I think. And they said, I have a weird voice. They said, you shouldn't be able to sing as high as you do or as low as you do. Right. But that's just, I've been blessed with that. So I get to use
blessed,
that.
But yeah, I mean, that's part of practicing.
Lots of practice.
The age of 10.
And you often say to me, this person sings what, I don't know how,
back of
the throat.
Yeah.
This person sings nasal, like he can hear how they're producing that sound by listening to them.
Like
and I think that is a huge gift.
Yeah.
I grew up listening to
and I try to figure that out when he's describing it. And he's actually taught me a lot on how he does that, but it's still definitely a gift.
You can hear it when
how you hear it and how you make your own voice do what you hear.
You can hear.
It's amazing to me.
Like I grew up listening to Kiss and all that, and when you hear the Paul Stanley sing, he sings at the back of his throat, so it's like yeah, it's kind of like what would he do? Oh, yeah.
How'd that go? Let's hear that again.
He'd be like whoa.
Oh, man, there you go.
And my blood boils hot. It's in the back of the throat, right? That's how he does it. Other people like Axl Rose, he's more of in the front of his mouth. So his would be more like as I said before, like whoa, sweet child of mine. The difference between and right? There's 2 different tonalities. So when you figure out where they sing from, it's kind of the same thing as an instrument. Like a trumpet's going to sound like a trumpet because it's a trumpet. So if you understand how a trumpet works, you can make a trumpet noise.
Absolutely.
Same thing with the human voice. If you understand where they're singing from, then you just kind of mimic that, right?
So those muscles to control your voice, is that something that you protect then? Is this kind of like where you have developed routines and exercises to be able to maintain the control over each one of those octave ranges?
For sure. Every morning, generally 6 out of 7 days, I hop in my car when I wake up and I do my vocal exercises. And it could be anything from, like I'll go, then do it again, and then I'll do D's, and then all these kind of different things. And what it does, it takes different parts of my voice, and I like the terminology. It stretches them. And there's a great vocal coach and artist, Ken Tamplin. I got his vocal course, and I actually opened up for him once. And he had mentioned, he goes, when you warm up your voice, think of it like waking somebody up, waking up your voice. You don't go to someone and say, hey, get up. It's like a rude awakening. He goes, gently wake it up. So I like doing the stretches that kind of like, because typically people will go, la, 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 la. I like to go, la, 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 la. And as I get higher, then I can feel that stretch. It's like kind of stretching before running a race or stretching before anything. And so when I get to the stage, I'm pretty much ready to go. But I got to do that. And you're right, you got to protect yourself. You know, vocal wise, I sing a lot, and usually, again, I'm blessed to be able to sing for 4 or 5 hours without even a break or a drink of water.
Wow.
You know, which is, that surprises me. My brother calls me a cyborg. Yeah. If you're a cyborg, you shouldn't, you know. And there's people who like will sing one song and they're kind of like, oh, I can't sing anymore. Right? So I'm able to go on forever and ever. It's awesome. But the thing with that, though, I also got to be careful, too, because you know your limits. You know how far you can push yourself. The same way a runner runs a race. If he sprints right out of the gate, he's going to be too tired to finish it. So you have to know how far to go before you can push yourself at different areas.
Crazy.
So you can make it to the end of the line.
I don't think most people even have a clue about some of that stuff.
No, and it's like anything. It's like, as you said, what you do with your podcast and all that, you know, it's a lot harder and a lot more work than people think it is. They think, oh, just stick it to a microphone,
Sit
no
down,
problem.
start talking.
Yeah, whatever. It's the same thing with us. It's not easy.
Oh, that's pretty interesting. Like, so I guess it would be tone too. Like you got to stretch it out, but then you have that ability to keep the structure of your voice to be able to control it.
It's like rasping. You know, you have to know when to rasp. Like Bob Seger would have like a, I know it's late, that type of thing. Or Bryan Adams has it too, but it's a different kind. You know, it'd be more like his more like a, oh, once in a while you find someone, right? He's got that. But Bob Seger's is more like I said, if it was like well, it's the same one, I guess. I know it's late. I know you're lonely. I know you're planned. It's a little different. So some of them are similar, but there's a slight difference that'll kind of push it over the edge type thing. Then you got the clarity voice, you know, the Steve Perry of like a, so now I come to you, open up. There's no
there you go.
That.
Yeah.
So you got to be able to know when to do that and how to do that.
You're just thrown, like you're going from one to the other, like it's, those examples are pretty wild. Holy smokes.
Yeah, there's a lot to it, but like you said, it's a lot of practice, right? And knowing when.
Have you ever taken a break and then you get back into it and you're like, oh, son of a, I think I lost it. Or you got to work it like going to the gym. You know, you can lose it, but then you know how to get back, but you're like, there's some work I got to do here.
Sometimes I don't like taking breaks for that reason. You know, because it's like if I take a break, it's like, like is my voice going to get rested? Because if I get too rested, I got to I call it resetting my voice. I don't want to do that, you know. So, yeah, you got to be careful.
Probably the only time you've ever taken a break is when you gotten like a virus or a cold or something, right? And then you have to take a break.
Oh, you have to.
You're forced to.
Yeah.
Well, I broke my voice last year. I don't know what I did, but I had to do some shows, and I just getting over a sickness, and I was pushing my voice too hard. And as a result, something happened where I got better, but my voice didn't. And I'm like, oh, what is going on here? So, you know, it's just a matter of day by day, you know, you're praying it'll get better, and, you know, you're doing what you can. You know, look online about podcasts where people are talking about how to get your voice better if there's something wrong, you know. So Steven Tyler apparently is going through that right now from Aerosmith. Yeah, he blew his voice out in a show, and the doctor said, don't sing for 30 days. At all. Now he can do that. Sadly, we can't do that right now because if they say don't sing for 30 days, then that's like we don't eat for 30 days.
Yeah.
So it's like I have to be careful.
You need to insure your voice.
Yeah.
You seem to be able to do with everything else. Your hands and your hair.
Ace Frehley from Kiss apparently. Ace Frehley had insured each of his fingers for $1 million each. You know, because he's the guitarist. Right?
Unreal.
So, yeah, there you go.
Moneymaker.
Yeah, I tell you.
What is that, anyways? When you blow your voice, like when you lose your voice. Do you know what is that? Like when you lose your voice, is it just kind of?
I think it's kind of like getting when somebody. Yeah, I think when you get like a ball player who throws his arm out. He's just too much, and then that muscle stretches a little more than it's supposed to, and it just gets tired, you know, and it's like, it needs a break. Like anything, you need a break. And if you don't take that break and keep pushing it, it's just getting worse.
Yeah.
And I think same thing for vocalists. You got to give your voice. Tina Turner apparently had, every time she was done a show, she'd always call her mother, but she had a tap signal or something like that. 1 tap meant yes, 2 taps meant no. So she wouldn't say anything. Her mom would ask her yes or no questions. And she did that because she wanted to save her voice for the next concert.
How hard is that?
Yeah.
I don't think that's harder than it sounds, isn't it? Not to talk.
Plus, she's a very raspy. Like you got her. Like, we don't need another hero. She's got that in her voice, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah.
So the rasp is harder on your vocal cords.
If you're pushing your voice that much, you know, like, you know that. You're pushing yourself that hard on your voice.
Yeah. Is it because it's vibrate? Like the picture that I seen of a vocal cord much looked like the working end of a whoopee cushion. You know what I mean? It's just flopping.
Yeah.
But then you can have a little bit of muscle tone to it and control that part, and that's how it's creating sound. Mm-hmm. And so the raspy part must be just a little bit more of that, your vocal cord, you know, fluttering a little bit more, whereas a tighter sound would be a little bit more muscle tone and tighter, I guess.
I kind of see it as a balloon, where you kind of hold the balloon and you can make it squeak.
Yeah, there you go.
You know, by kind of keeping it closed a little bit.
Yeah.
So you're kind of singing through a closed voice. So instead of you're like you're just kind of closing it a bit and then singing through that. So depending on how much you do or how you shape your vocal cords or your voice, depends on the sound that comes out, right? So,
crazy.
Yeah, there's
the human body's wild.
It is,
because you're breathing at the same time through that same part and eating and oh man. So do you keep track of things, like speaking of, like, do you smoke, do you eat, like, do you stay away from pop or like certain foods and that might affect your voice?
Good question. I don't smoke or drink, the occasional beer type thing. Never smoked, because obviously that's not good for your voice either, or your lungs. But the idea is that people have different things they stay. People say stay away from milk. Don't milk and all that. I'm not more into that. I'm more into just making sure I'm vocally prepared before a show. You know, I imagine if I had a lot of phlegm all the time, I might stay away from dairy for a while. But for the most part, yeah. I ironically like to, especially after a show, I like to have like a nice pop, like a Coke or something, because that acid in there is like a massage to my throat. And then some singers will actually have a Coke on stage instead of water. Oh, yeah. Because it kind of breaks up any mucus, right? Because the acid in there. So, I mean, to each his own. You know, I don't
Tricks of the trade. Everyone's got a preference.
Everybody
has what works.
Yeah, water hands down is always the best thing.
Obviously,
because your body loves water.
Yeah,
but whatever works for you.
Yeah. Are you going to get into this, Lorraine? Are you going to be like an act that the two of you will be able to go on stage and start banter back and forth?
Well, we actually have a show that we do at retirement homes.
Yes,
and we kind of do a duet together, and we do some banter.
You are getting into it.
Yeah, so
there you
we
go.
do a bit. We'll bring some props, and we'll try and get the people at the retirement homes to laugh a bit. And so we do some of that. On a large scale, not really.
Well, we don't. On the larger scale, for when I do my piano shows, we don't tell people. She'll be behind the soundboard with a wireless mic, and I'll start going, well, I had the time of, I'll start doing Time of My Life, right?
Yeah.
And then, next thing you know, you hear her coming in with, well, I have, and people are like, where's that coming from? So she'll walk to the stage with her mic, and we'll do that whole duet, right?
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
nice.
So we get to do stuff like that. It's a lot of
fun. That song's one of my favorites, because people usually get up and they pretend to do the lift.
Yeah, I haven't seen anyone do the lift yet.
Successful lift from the movie.
Yeah, I bet you've seen some pretty interesting things happen, haven't you?
Oh, yeah.
Have you had to ever break your routine? You seen something like a lift and you're like, ooh, do I stop or do I laugh or do I?
No, thankfully, no. Even in my impression shows, it's like, I get people that'll say, oh, someone's having a birthday, can you dedicate one of your songs? It's kind of like, well, I can, but my show's more like something you would see, like if you went and saw Phantom of the Opera, you wouldn't say, hey, Phantom, JoJo here has a birthday. Can you do a shout out? It's like, no, you're there to see the show. Just sit there and watch it. Enjoy it, But yeah.
But at bars and backyard parties, definitely. We'll sing
a little
happy
more
birthday a lot more often,
sure,
or happy anniversary.
Yeah, we try and involve people in that way as much as we can.
Smaller crowds almost seem a little bit funner, eh? A little more interaction, intimate kind of.
Yeah, they can be, for sure. For
Definitely,
sure.
yeah.
We've had our share of weird shows, though, where they'd put us in a weird place and no one's there. Everyone's out in the barn and we're sitting there playing for nobody. It's like, what happened here?
Yeah, there's all different.
We get weird differences scenarios.
Yeah, we could write a book probably.
Oh, I can imagine. You should.
Yeah.
Why not? You should.
That's right.
Sometimes we think about it.
Hell, why not?
And we do have a writer in the family.
Yeah, her daughter's a writer. Yeah,
Yeah.
She writes books. Yeah,
It's not a bad idea. I think it's just, I think a continuation is something to build on. You know, I think someone else said it's like a hand-me-down. Right? When you write a book, of course, everyone wants to get there. It's for getting your message out there, make money off it. But I think a lot of it is just capturing a little bit about yourself that can turn into almost an heirloom.
Yeah.
Like if you had a book from a family member that was a great whoever, right?
Yeah.
And they had a book, I think that would be rather interesting, wouldn't it?
True.
For sure.
It might be interesting to try and.
Yeah, well, we've been through some crazy stuff, so and I think a lot of musicians would probably relate to it and go, "Oh gosh, that's chapter
Been
4
there,
of my
done
life."
that.
Yeah. Have you had a lot of? Do you get hecklers? Like how comedians seem to always have that one freaking whatever. But do you you're a little bit of do you get the same kind of experience? Do people have the need to try and shout out from the crowd, or
they don't necessarily heckle, but they'll make me laugh. Like I remember one show, I wasn't feeling well, but I did the show anyway. My voice wasn't there, so I'm apologizing. I said, "Can I get some water?" You know, and so somebody would bring me up some water, and I'd be doing the show, and I would say, "Sorry, folks, you know, like I tend to be drinking so much water and all that." And some guy would yell out, "How do you think?" Oh no, I said, "And I don't even have to pee." You know, and some guy would say, "Well, how do you think we filled your glass?" You know, so that would catch me off guard. That would make me laugh, right? So they don't really heckle. They just they like to throw in their little, like I have
their 2 cents, so to speak.
I've got one song where I do Neil Diamond, basically a song about losing your hair, and it's like, when it began, I can't begin to know when. It's kind of like receding hairline, right? People love that, and usually it's that song that people will kind of point at their bald friend and saying, "That song for you, man." So we have fun with that.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's probably the guy. I'm getting it too, relating to what you're saying.
There you go, relation.
Read on. Well, what's your goal then? What is your goal? Like, do you have a certain stage, maybe somewhere like a stadium, or like, do you have a dream that you want to achieve to be able to say, okay, this is I hit that goal kind of thing?
I think the key thing for me is to entertain people, give them an out from their regular life that they can sit down and laugh and have a good time. Because there are so many, especially now on that TikTok and YouTube and all these kind of platforms, there are so many talented people. And I'm the first to say, man, that guy's way better than I am at voices. Wow, that guy's incredible. But I've always said the key thing is to be able to entertain. If you entertain somebody, then you win. At the end of the day, if they came and they said, I had a good time, you know, and I get that a lot. I get people saying, thank you. Sometimes it's really deep. People will say, I just lost my mother this week and I needed this. And that just makes the whole trip worthwhile right there. Other people just have fun and they enjoy themselves. So when it comes down to it, it's not about having a goal to be the biggest and, you know, to headline in Vegas. For me, it's like, I'm just happy that if I can entertain people and at the end of the show, you enjoyed yourself, then I win, you win.
Mission accomplished.
Mission accomplished. You know, it's not about trying to become a billionaire through this. It's just kind of like, I'm so thankful to be doing this for a living, to make people happy. You know, and I think if it got to the point where people weren't enjoying themselves anymore, then it's kind of like, okay, well, then maybe my time is done here. You know, it's time for someone else to take the reins or to go to something different, right? So, yeah, my goal is just that people are happy, you know, that people have fun. You know, and especially in a world like today, not a lot of fun out there sometimes. Sometimes it can be
I know.
You know?
Yeah. Well, this is definitely needed.
Yeah.
No, I love the fact that people like you are out there, man. I'm telling you, and it's, I think, a team effort, not only obviously with what you guys have going, but, you know, people like Brian over at the Lido Theater and all these different venues, because without them, I mean, was it a couple, 2-3 years ago, we seen what it's like when you, in the absence of entertainment like that, right? I mean, yeah. So it's, I think, definitely a lot more needed.
Oh gosh,
or important, I should say too. I mean,
a couple of years ago, as an entertainer, you need an audience. As a photographer, you need people to take pictures of.
Yeah,
and that was both a lot. So you can imagine how much fun we were having.
Oh, I guess.
So it was hectic. It was good to get back out there.
It was hectic. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
So I just had a brain fart. That's awesome. That's like that awkward moment on stage. I was locked and loaded too. I was like, this one's going to land awesome. And it just went blank.
Well, that kind of stuff can happen on stage too. It's brutal when, you have a whole show, designed. Mine come from basically when I have a certain order to sing in. And there's I know song, I have my set list memorized. There's going to be 27 songs. And so I know it's next, but there's times where it's like, no, I don't remember what impression is next. So I'll just kind of say, Lorraine, why don't you start the next song? So she'll start the next song.
You got to go to.
Give me a few notes, and then maybe shut it off. Or I'll just kind of quickly do the intro during.
That's a cool little trick.
It can be scary sometimes. You're like, oh no.
I find it's usually when you're talking, and then my brain will fire off. I'll have all these questions, right? And I don't want to take away and write them all down. So I'll just kind of throw it in the back and then still kind of, and then we'll go down on whatever, and then I'll refer back to that question. Yeah. But then it's like, what the hell was that again? Yeah. And it creates that moment where you're like, son of a, what did I just do here? Right. But that's part of the skill, right? I mean, with podcasting, like you said, there's, I think, a lot of things that you need to develop behind the scenes that you don't realize that you needed going into it.
Yep.
You're aware that there's things to learn. It just sucks when you don't know what those things are yet. Right. Yeah. So that's part of that trial, playing things out, like what you've got, you've got with material. You got an idea. Okay. You know how to, deliver it, but to try and make it land, that's a skill. And I think there's some finessing that goes with it, and that's something to build on. And that really defines, I think, people who have the idea that they think they can do it, and they can. Absolutely. But there's a bit of a process that you have to go through, and sometimes you just can't. If you're skilled, you can jump in at different points of, levels of experience, but at the end of the day, there's nothing like actually doing it that brings in that professional element to it, where it's just smooth and everything lands. And I kind of was hearing some of your reference in it, where body language was precise in certain ways, but there's also that ability when you've got different crowds and venues to be able to kind of be fluid with it and manage it and control the crowd. That's, I'm sure, something that you can't just get jumping up there for the first time or two. You got to be able to read.
Experience is key, for sure.
It is. I almost encourage anybody to have a pad and paper, like whenever they're doing a show, and at the end of the show, write down everything you learn from that, because you run into situations that you just didn't see ahead of time, like you were saying. So each show that we do, we could learn something from it, type thing, and kind of go, okay, so now we know next time, let's do this. Doesn't matter what kind of show, anything you do, because that's what makes you get better as you get better. But there's so many things you don't know is going to happen that happen, and you only get those experiences when you actually do it.
And if you don't write it down, there's nothing to reference.
Right. And then you go to do the show again, you're like, we should have wrote this down. The same thing is happening again. So you learn. Yeah. Experience.
Awesome. So we should start wrapping things up, but I want to know, how do we find out where you guys are at? You got to be on social media. People can follow, eh?
Yes. I help Matt with his Facebook page.
Yep.
And it's called Matt Gauthier Events Calendar.
Yep.
So you can look us up on there. And I try to put videos of almost every event that we do. If it's a private backyard party, maybe not so much, because it's private.
Yeah.
But I do a little clip of some of his work. Maybe not corporate events as much either.
Well, I started making a list where now I let people know where I am.
That too.
So whether it be, because I also play in a band called Retrospect. It's a classic rock cover band type thing. And so if we're playing in Retrospect, or if it's a piano show, no matter what it is, impression show, it's actually pinned at the top of our events calendar. So you go Matt Gauthier Events Calendar, and you'll see where I'm playing next.
So if people want to see his piano show, dueling pianos, Retrospect, his corporate events, well, that's an invited, but at least people know that he's doing that.
Yeah.
It's all on that social media page. And then also Instagram. I think it's Matt Gauthier Entertainer 1.
I think so. Yeah, you designed that one.
Yeah,
so
and we're also on Twitter.
Pretty much all of them. Yeah.
Matt
Twitter's
Gauthier.
becoming a big one, isn't it?
Or X, I should say.
Yeah, it is. It's X now.
Yes.
Is that a good one for you? Do you like Twitter?
No, it's not very big for us.
No.
People, they don't seem to watch videos like what I put on there very often. But I still put it on there so that we can say we're on there.
Absolutely.
Yep. So, and he also has a YouTube page.
Yeah.
He's got about 1,000 followers following you right now, and you put on all hundreds and hundreds of original music on there.
Lots of original covers,
Parodies.
a lot of fun thing. Yeah,
I've seen a few of them. I like the one with you were talking about Ozzy. I like the one with Ozzy.
Oh yeah,
Ozzy Osbourne. I mean, that's one of my favorites. It's pretty cool. What about a website? Do you have a website?
We used to have a website, but we ended up taking it down because it became more popular to be on like social media as far as TikTok and that kind of stuff, right? Instagram.
We talked about doing another website. We just
talked
haven't done
about
it.
We haven't got to it yet because I personally, wasn't getting a lot of hits on my website anyway. Because if people want to get hold of me, they just get hold of me directly, so they don't really need to go to a website. And if they want to see anything, they can just simply go on Facebook.
And Matt can send demos and that sort of thing through through email, that sort of thing, if anybody wants to see what he does.
Yeah.
Right on. Well, shout out to Brian and Cindy Kirshner over at Lido Theater. You said you've played there already a few times, eh?
Yeah.
That's a good venue, isn't it?
It's wonderful. It's a lot of fun. And Brian's just such a fun person to talk to. And
great couple.
Very professional. He's
absolutely
awesome.
I love it. I love that place, man. Yeah. It's a nice little plug and shout out to them because I think it's needed. It's one of those people that I think people need to protect it because there's a lot of effort, man, into running something like that and managing it. That guy's got so much going on all the time. So it's pretty cool what he does. And I think everybody gets a little bit of something out of it. So thanks again for coming out, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. Talk to you later.
All right, Kevin. Thanks.
Take care.